Okay, thank you. All right, so good morning. My name is Eduek and happy International Women's Day. So today we will be talking about RRSPs and TFSAs. We'll just go into a little bit of detail and talk about the key differences between the two of them and which accounts you can use first if you're looking to maximize one. So we'll just go quickly through the agenda. We'll talk about RRSPs, what's RRSPs, how they work, the benefits of an RRSP, your contribution limit, eligibility, withdrawal penalties, how to contribute, employer-sponsored plan, and how to withdraw from your RRSP. So what is an RRSP? So basically an RRSP is a registered retirement savings plan. And this is just a tax sheltered plan that has been incentivized by the government to encourage people to save for retirement. So what happens is when you contribute into an RRSP, it reduces your taxable income, which will reduce the amount of taxes that you owe. So for example, if you make $60,000 gross income annually and you contribute $10,000 into your RRSP, instead of the government to tax you on the full $60,000, they will only be taxing you on $50,000. So that helps to reduce the taxes that you eventually pay on your income. And the amount that you contribute will be reduced from your taxable income when you go to do your tax filing. So this is why you usually get a tax refund if you had contributed into your RRSP in the previous year, because in most cases, the amount of taxes that you paid during that year will now exceed the taxes that you owe. So that's why you would get a refund. And a good thing to know is that any income, capital gains, dividends that you make from your RRSP, it will not be taxed as long as that money stays in that account until retirement. And when you go to withdraw the money at retirement, that is when you get taxed on the contribution and any returns that you make from your investments. The reason why people contribute to their RRSPs is because they figured that during their retirement years, they will be in a lower income bracket. So it's more beneficial to them because during their working years, they're making more income and they will be paying more taxes. So it's better for you to contribute because eventually you'll be paying less taxes in the long run. So what are the benefits of contributing into an RRSP? The main goal is to build a retirement nest egg. We don't want to get to retirement and not have any source of income. I don't think the CPP we get would be able to get I don't think that would be able to provide a living wage for a lot of people. So it's always good to have something extra. And the money that if you invest the money in your RRSP, you're actually growing that money. So you actually have more money for you building that nest egg, you have more money for you at retirement. And then you also pay less taxes in general. And the assumption is that, like I mentioned, you would be in a higher tax bracket during your contribution years, as opposed to when you're retired. So what is the RRSP contribution limit? So every individual has a unique contribution limit. And you are allowed to contribute 18% of your previous year's gross income up to a maximum of $27,830. So for example, if you made $60,000 in 2020, your contribution limit for this year would be $10,800. But if you made $160,000, instead of your contribution limit to be $28,000, which will be 18% of your income, you're only allowed to contribute $27,830, which is the max that the government has set. But you are allowed to contribute into your spouse's RRSP if they have room and if they still have, if they haven't maxed out their contribution limit. So in terms of eligibility, anyone is allowed to contribute into an RRSP as long as they're making income. There is no minimum age required to contribute. You can start contributing as soon as you start earning income, but you can only contribute until you're 71 years old, and then you have to convert it into an RRF, which I'm going to talk about soon. So a lot of people always ask, do you lose the contribution room if you don't say, if you didn't contribute to your RSP in 2020, do you lose that room? No. So the CRA allows you to carry over the contribution room to the next years if you were unable to contribute into your RSP for any given year, or if for some reason you were not able to max out your contribution limit. So you never really lose that contribution room. But if you go to withdraw the money out of your RSP any given year, you lose that contribution room forever. There's an exception through the home buyers plan and the lifelong learning plan, which I'm going to talk about in the next slides. And if you want to know what your contribution limit is or how much room you have, you can always log into your CRA account. It would be on the bottom of your home page. And there is also a penalty if you withdraw money from your RSP before retirement, and if you over contribute in your RSP. I'm going to talk about what those penalties are as well. So how do you access your RSP contribution limit? I already said it. You can log into your CRA account, and usually when you go to file your taxes, you will also see it on your tax return. It will tell you what your contribution limit is for that year. So if you file your taxes for 2020, it would tell you what your limit is for 2021, as long as your lifelong contribution limit. So it's always good to check your CRA account before you start contributing so that you don't over contribute, because like I said, there are penalties. So the first penalty is when you withdraw the money out of your RSP before retirement. That is considered an early withdrawal. So the first penalty you get is a withholding tax. So this is the money that the financial institution or the bank that you put your money in, this is the money that they charge for you to withdraw that money. And there is a certain percentage based on the province that you are. And then you also get taxed based on your marginal tax. So if you're in a 31% marginal tax bracket and you go to withdraw any amount from your RSP, you would get charged taxes based on your marginal tax rate. So the fines are very hefty. So I usually advise people not to withdraw money from their RSPs unless it's a very under extenuation circumstances. And the second fine that you get, or second penalty that you get, is if you over contribute. So if you over contribute, you get charged a 1% penalty in excess of the amount for each month that you actually hold that excess amount. So that's why it's so important to always make sure that you are within your limits and you're checking your CRA account before you contribute into your RSPs. So how do you withdraw money early from your RSP without penalty? Like I mentioned, there are two major ways that the government has created. The first one is through the home buyers plan. So this is for people that are first-time home buyers. You can withdraw up to $35,000 to go towards your first home, and they give you 15 years to pay that money back into your RSPs with no charges, with no fines. And before you can actually use this home buyers plan, you actually have to go through a pre-approval process. So you have to put in an application, and then they have to respond back and say that you are eligible before you can actually use it. The second one is the lifelong learning plan. So if you're a student enrolled in an eligible program, you can withdraw up to $20,000 from your RSP towards your tuition, but you're only allowed $10,000 per year. And as well, this requires a pre-approval. So always check the CRA for eligibility before you withdraw any money out of your RSPs. So there are two major ways that you can contribute into your RSP. The major one and the most common one is through your employer. So most employers would have a group retirement plan or a defined contribution plan. So defined contribution plan is a plan where you contribute a certain amount and your company can match up to a certain amount. Some companies don't offer a match, but it all depends on where you work. So there are different nuances to that. So just make sure you're always knowing what you're signing up for. And the second way is through your financial institution. And these are usually called the self-directed RSPs. So this is when you open an account on your behalf, not your company opening on your behalf. And you're usually responsible for any investments that go in, and you can pick and choose whatever investments that you want to put in that RSP that you open for yourself. So how the employer contribution works. So basically, with most group RSPs, your company might offer a company match where, so for example, if your company gives a 30% match and you contribute $1,000 towards your RSP, your company would put $300 into that plan. So that's what a 30% match is. I always tell people that that is a 30% guaranteed return on your money. Whatever match your company gives is a guaranteed return on your money. So always take advantage of that offer, because basically, I'd say you're just leaving money on the table if you don't take advantage of that offer. Another key thing to note is, even though you contribute to your employer, because I know a lot of people make this mistake, and I made this mistake initially, you just say, oh, I want to contribute a certain percentage, but you don't actually pick your investment. So you actually have to go in and choose the investments that you want. Most companies will give you a brochure with the different investment options that they have. So just do a little bit of background check and figure out what those investments are, what they had invested in, what their rate of return is, and choose something. Because if you just leave it there, the money is just going to sit and do nothing for you. So always make sure that your RSPs are invested. Another key thing to note is that your employer contribution will count towards your contribution limit. So you are responsible for your contribution limit. So always be aware of what that limit is. For example, if you have an employer plan and you have your own personal plan, you need to make sure that whatever you're contributing through both of those plans is not exceeding your limit, so that you don't get the penalty. And for some people that have a defined pension plan, so this is when the company contributes a certain amount towards your pension, but you don't have to contribute anything. Also note that that amount that your company is contributing into your pension plan will count towards your contribution limit. So always be aware of that. So how do you withdraw money from your RSP at retirement? So the three main ways, you can do it as a lump sum when you get to the age of 71, or you can convert it into a registered retirement income fund, or an RRF, starting at age 55. So you can withdraw a certain amount as income, and there is a minimum yearly withdrawal limit that is posted on the CRA website that you have to withdraw that amount every year once you hit retirement. The third way is you can buy an annuity that pays income. And so like I said, you will be subject to your marginal tax rate regardless of what option you choose. And once you convert your RSP into an RIF, you cannot change it back into an RSP. So just make sure that you are sure that you want to convert it before you start, because you can't go back. So a few rules to know is that in terms of an RSP, I would say don't contribute money that you need immediately. So if you're saving for a house, for example, unless you want to use the home buyer's plan, but if you're saving for a car or something, don't put the money into your RSP if it's something that you need, because of the penalties that they charge you. It's so hefty that it's not worth it. You lose all the gains that you made on your money. And when you contribute into RSP, it's not enough. You actually have to invest it. The reason why you invest is so that we beat inflation. So just leaving the money there, it's just going to sit and do nothing for you. And always invest in your RSP for long term. For me, long term is considered retirement. And do not withdraw your RSP to pay off debt, because the withholding taxes that you end up paying will usually exceed the interest on the debt that you're paying. So to me, I don't think it's worth it unless under very extenuating circumstances. And always take advantage of your employer match and start contributing today. So next, we're going to talk about the tax-free savings account. So what is a tax-free? Well, what is a TFSA? TFSA, it's a tax-free savings account. And it's also a tax advantage retirement vehicle incentivized by the government to encourage people to save for retirement. I highlighted the word retirement because a lot of people I think they misuse their TFSA because they just use it as a savings account. Maybe you're just saving for a microwave or whatever, but I don't think that should be how a TFSA should be utilized. It should be used for any long-term savings. And to me, long-term is anything greater than 3 years. The reason being is that you want to be investing the money in your TFSA so that it can grow for you. And I'll just explain why. So how do TFSAs work? So when you contribute into your TFSA, you are contributing the money post-tax. So basically your take-home pay. So the government has already taken the taxes that they need, and now you can use whatever you have left to contribute into your TFSA. So in your TFSA, all the capital gains, all the growth, all the dividends that you get from your investments, plus your initial contribution, will not be taxed. So once you put money in there, whatever happens to it, so if you're lucky and you hit a big break and you make like maybe 30% return on your money, all of that is yours to keep. The government would not touch it. So that's one of the very good benefits of a TFSA. And you can withdraw the money from your TFSA at any time you want without any penalties or taxes. So what are the advantages of a TFSA? It's that obviously, like I said, it helps to build a retirement nest egg. You can invest that money, which will grow your nest egg even further. You don't pay any taxes on your investment gains, and that gives it a prime option for any kind of long-term investing. So if you were saving for a house, you wanted to buy a house in 5 years, you can put that money in your TFSA, let it grow, and your investments would actually, you can get like a 10%, 15%, depending on how savvy of an investor you are, and you can use that gains to actually add to your savings to buy a house or whatever it is that you're saving for. And you can also use it for non-retirement savings. So that is one of the key benefits of a TFSA, and it's one of my favorite ways to save. So in terms of contribution limit, for the TFSA, there's a fixed amount, there's a fixed dollar amount that the government announces every year. So for 2020 and 2021, that amount has been $6,000. Just like your RSP, your contribution room from your previous years are carried over into the next year. So if you don't contribute, say in 2021, you can contribute that, you can use that contribution room in 2022. Unlike the RSP, you don't lose your contribution room even after you withdraw money from your TFSA. So for example, if I decided that this year I wanted to withdraw $2,000 from my TFSA, by 2022, that amount will reset and I can recontribute that $2,000. You can't contribute it in the year that you withdraw it though. You have to wait till the next year for you to be able to contribute that amount. And you can also log into your CRA account to see your total contribution limit. And this is just a screenshot from the CRA website to show you what the previous years have been. So if you've never contributed into your, let's should say TFSA, if you turn 18 in 2019 and you've never contributed to your TFSA, as of today, your contribution room should be around $75,500. So for eligibility for TFSA, you have to be 18 years and you don't need to be earning income, unlike your RSP where you need to be earning income. For a tax-free savings account, you don't need to be earning income to start contributing, but you have to be 18, you have to be 18 years. So is there any kind of withdrawal penalty? There's absolutely no penalties for withdrawing from your TFSA, and you can withdraw that money at any age, anytime you want. You don't have to wait for retirement. So that's why it's a really good retirement savings plan. So how can you contribute to your TFSA? So literally any financial institution in Canada should be able to open a TFSA for you. You just, I think some of the banks would want you to come in because they need your SIN and a few identification, but it's essentially free. You can open it in any institution. But if you're looking to invest the money in your TFSA, I always advise to open it with an investment brokerage account, just because they can also open an investment account for you in your TFSA. So you don't have to have two separate accounts in two different banks. Even though you can do that, it just makes it easier for you to open it with the person you will be investing in anyways. A few rules to know is that you should always invest the money in your TFSA, like I mentioned. Don't just put the money there. Like if you're using your TFSA as a savings account, I would advise not to do that. If you need any kind of short-term savings, it is better to use a high interest savings account. I know it says high interest, but the savings are usually 2%, but it's better because that way you can actually leave your investments in your TFSA to grow for you instead of withdrawing it in and out and losing the returns that you can get from just leaving the money to compound for you. So I would say anything less than 3 years, use a high interest savings account, and anything greater than 3 years, you can use your TFSA. You also want to be using your TFSA for retirement, because at retirement, when you go to withdraw that money, you are not getting taxed whatsoever. And as always, start contributing today. So I'm just going to go over some of the few differences between the RSP and TFSA. In terms of contribution from your income, the RSP is pre-tax, but the TFSA is post-tax. And for eligibility, for the RSP, you can contribute at any age as long as you earn income. But for the TFSA, you have to be 18 years old. And are the contributions tax deductible? For the RSP, yes. But for the tax-free savings account, the answer is no. Are there any early withdrawal penalties for the RSP? Yes. And the TFSA is no. And I'm just gonna quickly go over because I just have almost out of my time. So I think this is the main question a lot of people ask: what account should I contribute to first? I would say that if you have income that is above $50,000, start with your RSP, just because you get better tax break from that. But if your income is below $50,000, start with your TFSA, because you would not be getting any beneficial tax break because you're already in a lower tax bracket. And if you only need the money at retirement, start with your RSP. If it's money that you can sock away and forget about and you don't need it, you can start with your RSP. But if you know you're gonna need that money soon, in 3, 5, 10 years, start with your TFSA. And if you're certain that your tax bracket will be lower at retirement, you can start with your RSP. But if you know that your tax bracket will be a lot higher at retirement, say you know you have a business and it's growing, just start contributing into your TFSA and start maxing that out. But the goal is that you want to try your best to max out both accounts. I know it's not realistic for a lot of people with their income, but that's the end goal. You want to be using both accounts to the fullest. Okay, so that's it for me, and just a few ways you can find me. You can find me through my website, twosidesofadime.com, or my email, twosidesofadime@gmail.com. I do offer financial coaching if you are interested in that. And that's it for today. Thank you.